what's up? We're just weekend, ending the weekend with another standard deck tech for Dominaria United, and this time we have this list, which is full of basically creatures. What I mean creatures is that we're going to go with Sultai Goyf by Kman3340. And it be done any modifications here, but we'll just explore what the deck strategy would look like. And for a quick start, we have a reminder of the deck that is based on what we call as a self-mill, or putting cards into your graveyard. And as more creatures are added, the more effects that you're gonna get and more benefits from the deck and its card components and strategy in this setup. So we're going to start with basically sort this out by converted mana cost, since basically just we have these creatures, walkers, and lands on this. We're going to delve into the casting of each. So we're going to start with the 1-drops. We have 4 copies of Death Bonnet Sprout. This is 1/1 for 1. It's a fungus that keeping you self-mill in your turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you mill a card, then if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you can transform it into a 3/3 Death Bonnet Hook. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile a card from your graveyard. If a creature was exiled this way, you can put a counter on it, making it bigger, but sadly it's just a 3/3. It's going to 4/4, but no trample bonus. But anyways, that's the benefit here, is that if you have already self-milled a lot and there are extra turns on it, at the least you can have this trigger by your turn 4 or beginning of your turn 4, and you can basically flip it out into this side. But depending on the station, again, we have various ways to put creatures to graveyard, so flipping it is not really an issue here. So let me just go back again to the list. We have for the 2-drops, we have a few variants here, in which we're going to go with first with the All Sticky Fingers. It's a 2-drop by its mana cost, but Big X would really depend on how you can reveal cards from the top card of the library until you reveal X creature cards. Then as you cast these spells, this creature cards revealed this way is put into your graveyard, and then put the rest of the bottom library in random order. And then all sticky fingers, tower toughness are each equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So again, self-milling is a way to benefit this card, and as long as you get extra mana, you can just basically mill out more creatures and make these all sticky fingers bigger. Then the issue here is that having 4 copies might be the difference as to the legendary limit of having only 1 sticky fingers in your board. So next we have the Reclusive Taxidermist. This is from Crimson Bow Uncommon. It's just a 2-drop human druid that adds mana many color, but the benefits that if there are 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, it becomes bigger. It becomes +3/+2, which basically makes it a 4/4 threat, and it's for just only 2 mana. So again, making sure that you have more creatures in your graveyard as you go along in the deck, and more benefits having for your creatures. So these are the benefits of that. We also have 2 copies of Shigeki. So Shigeki can be channeled to discard XX and 2 green mana. So you can return X target non-legendary cards from graveyard to your hand. But the good news is that you can basically just cut Steam on turn 2, activate its ability in turn 3 to reveal the top 4 cards in your library, and then put a land card from among them in the battlefield, tap, and the rest into your graveyard. So basically, it can become a good mana fix on the setup, and at the same time put those unnecessary or maybe some other creatures and filling up your graveyard in the process of activating its ability. So 2 copies, so making sure that we have options in your second turn and having vacant third turn to activate its ability. So with Shigeki, we also have Undead Butler. This is just 1 copy. When enter the battlefield, you will get to mill 3 cards, put 3 cards to your graveyard. So when it dies, you may exile it. If you do, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. So basically just another utility card to add in the field in your 2 drops. But the important card here again is the new card from Dominaria United. We have Goyf. It is a 2-2 cast by its term. If you're an old school player having the original Goyf, this is a bonus ability, but the bonus of having to kick extra by having to pay 1 blue or black, or 1 blue and black mana. As it was kicked, you can mill 3 cards for each time it was added. Then its power toughness will depend on the number of creature cards in your graveyard, whereas the toughness is the same number plus 1. So as the game progresses, you can have to build out more cards in your yard and more power and toughness given to Goyf. So 4 copies to make sure that, again, having the threat and going to draw it early on, and maybe also the late game, can be a good mana sink for the kicker cost. And we have another soul copy of Wildspawn Spider. So this has a self-mill effect, and then you may pay for 1 blue and 1 green to colorless tap, sacrifice it, create a 1/1 insect creature token for each creature card in graveyard. Sadly, it's just activated sorcery, so your opponents might have ample time to deal with those. But still, it is a good card since you can basically go in the late game, you can activate it to sacrifice. Then for how many creature cards was added in your graveyard, it will produce that many 1/1 green insect creature token. So that would be a lot of threats, maybe at least 5 or 6 tokens, depending on the number of cards that is currently creature cards in your graveyard. So along with it, we have also for the third 3 drops here, we can consider these cards since the purpose here is to channel them. You can channel it for 2 to discard it, return target creature to its owner's hand, so it's a bounce spell. Or you can channel it for 3, discard it, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So it is a revival effect for green depending on the setup, or you can just purely hard cast it in the late game for 7 since it is a 6/5 flying ward to Colossal Sky Turtle. So 4 copies of this to make sure that you can channel it. By means of channel it, you pay to discard it to put in the graveyard to have these 2 effects. And along with it, we also have Mirror Shell Crab. Since you have a channel effect, it is a counter spell basically by its term. It is a 3 to cast effect of a channel, counter target spell or ability unless it's for phase 3. So still, this is a good way to have utility creatures such as this, in which you can also fill up your graveyard in the process, but also use their channel ability to deal with certain situations. And along with those setup, we also have Airtight Resurrected from Dominaria United. So it's a 4 to cast 3/2 flashy creature that can just counter target spell ability or trigger ability, whereas its controller will draw a card, or destroy another target creature or planeswalker and its controller draws a card. So the only drawback here is that the owner of those permanents being countered or destroyed will get to draw those extra cards as a replacement. But the good news is that Airtight can deal with a certain threat, or maybe a relevant threat, or counter a relevant spell in this effect. So 2 copies of it alongside with the Mirror Shell Crab's channel ability. We also have Rethink Necromass. So it's 7 by its cost, but it's a 5/5, but it costs 1 less for each creature card in the graveyard. So a good 5/5 death touch that costs 1 less. Basically, if you're going to have at least 6 or max out for 6 creature cards in your graveyard, it basically becomes a 1 to cast 5/5 death touch. So basically a good deal for just a common giant, which relies most on creature cards, though make it lesser to cast. So 2 copies of this. It's under 7 CMC, but by its functionality can be lesser or cheaper to cast by certain situations. So the last creature that I'll have here to introduce is Consuming Blob. Having 1 obs is a very good instance to have utility cards in this deck. So its power toughness is equal to the number of card types among cards in your graveyard. So we can have card types of creatures and just planeswalker inlands. But the benefit of having this second ability, wherein at the beginning of end step you create a green boost creature token with this creature's power is equal to the number of card types and its toughness is equal to that number plus 1. So it is basically creating a copy of itself, but the token is just not basically replicating, but having free creatures to the beginning of your end step on every of your turn is also a good way to develop your board, or at least having this kind of threat free creature generations. So to make sure that we have other utility to help fill up your graveyard and also become a threat to your opponents, we have these Planeswalkers added to this build. Liliana of the Bell, not really nothing else to introduce to her because it's the best card in the set. It's a benefit of having to discard a card since you are just filling up your graveyard. It's also beneficial to you, but at the same time can be an annoying stance to your opponents because they need to find ways to deal with her and at the same time lessens their card value in their card, as you would also have them discard a card. And at the same time you can have this edict effect if needed for certain situations. So Ultimate, we don't really wish for that, but it's really good that we can get to its ultimate loyalty and deal and activate it on their opponent. Then another lone copy here of the Planeswalker that we featured is Ren 7. So producing any number of lands, you can produce just basically 3 folks, and then have this effect also +1 on putting all lands revealed in this way to your hand and the rest in your graveyard. So also a way of filling up your graveyard with creatures and having the zero effect of putting any number of land cards from your hand into the battlefield tap. So this is a good utility spell. Card filter to your library, having to fill your graveyard and also creating 3 creature threats that is based on the number of lands you control. So overall, we would wrap this up with the mana fix. So we go again, cover the mana cost with the types. So for the lands, 24 lands, more of the fixing with slow lands that have Blade. We have Dribroot Cascades, Shipwreck Moss also, and sadly we don't have a Triland here, so we just stick also with the Dominaria United's Yabimaya Coast as your new pain lands to fix, and some utility cards such as Takinuma, one of each, Otawara, Sun City, and Poseidon Endures. So for the mana fixing distribution, I think this is very fair, but we have more of green as for producing 19 over blue 18 and black 14 with average CMC of 3.5, or that's between 3 casting costs and 4 casting costs in this build, and the rest on subtypes and tokens that you use. So overall, this is a deck that we can get to formulate. If you want to try this on your MTG Arena, I would suggest you do so. Any comments and suggestions would also benefit us in how we could go with this fix. Maybe change a few of the expensive cards into cheaper ones that we can still have the same functionality in this setup. So that's about it. Sultai Goyf again by K-Man 3340 from MTG Goldfish is a good text addition again to go with this kind of strategy of involving graveyard shenanigans and benefiting from it. So that's about it. Thank you for checking this video. Until the next deck tech video for Dominaria United Standard, don't forget to like and subscribe for more MTG content on this setup. Thank you for checking this, and until the next time.